Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 2. Now, what are we going to be doing this episode? Well, that is a good question. I think it's finally time I started the map ranking series, because I have teased it a little bit here and there in some of the earlier videos. So, essentially, what we're going to be doing this series is we're going to be ranking all of the normal mode maps. So what do I mean by that? I basically mean any mode that isn't Turf Takeover. So things like Suburbanation, Gnome Bomb, Vanquish Confirmed, and even Team Vanquish. We're going to be looking through and ranking all of those maps. And, yeah, there is quite a few of them. Definitely not gonna be, the quickest series I've ever done, but it is one that I feel like it kind of bears doing. Because I could explain all the variants, how all the different upgrades work, everything like that, but it's really not helpful if you don't know where you're doing it. So, in order to get a proper feel for the maps, I'm thinking of doing a gnome bomb. Now, we could go through each individual mode, but I feel like then we would kind of be here all day. So my thought is, do a game of gnome bomb on each side, because that will send you through a lot of the map. During gnome bomb, you'll be doing a lot of combat, seeing how all of the structures and the geometry is for that. You'll, of course, get the gnome bomb locations. And then, once that's done, I will probably do a Suburbanation with no other AI, so that it's not really going on, and that way we'll have a lot of time to sort of look through, examine the map, and I'll be ranking these maps on a scale of 1 to 10. I feel like that's fair. And then at the end of it, at the end of the series, I will think about putting each of the different maps into a sort of tier list. The closest thing I can do. Alrighty then, so this is a Suburbanation that will never end until we decide it to end, and this is how I'm going to be examining the map. I'm also going to be having Citron here. So, what do I think of Zen Peak? It's a very okay map. It's passable in a pinch. One problem that I noticed immediately after those matches is there is not a lot of very good cover outside of the strategically necessary points. So, where the gnome bombs were, you see there are the buildings nearby. Same thing with the gnome bomb location that was here, there's a decent amount of cover. Same one with the one back all the way in the zombie side of the map, and the one that they put back all the way in the plant side. It is very easy in those locations where they actually have objectives, including similar story with the Suburbanation objectives, it seems. It's very easy there to get cover, but anywhere else starts becoming a bit dodgy from what I can tell. You have these very long open strips of area where there's just not a whole lot to protect you. Like here, this entire stretch of area, you are basically completely open. Up here, unless you count the bamboo, but the bamboo can be shot through, so it's only visible protection. Maybe the chance that the enemy won't see you, but they can still shoot through it just fine. So, that is one issue that is with the map, straight up. Now, a big benefit it has is it is very long-ranged overall. There's not a whole lot of great points where a melee character can do well, because both Super Brains, Chomper, and I guess Scientist too, they all are a bit overtuned in this game, in my opinion. So any map that sort of negates a melee character, I'm very, very happy with. This is the only real section where you have much of a melee issue, and I guess around the zombie section, simply because of this bit here and the whole general area where it's very easy to be up top and then jump down and just very easily ambush anyone down in this section. Now then, there are also high-rises that also make it very good for sniper characters. This roof in particular is a very popular one. It's very common to see zombies go and get up on top of this one. There's also, I think it is theoretically possible to get to this roof, but I think only Super Brains can do it outside of low gravity, and maybe a pea shooter if they're patient enough to use one hyper to get to that roof or that roof, and then another hyper to get up here. And this roof does actually have decent cover, because you can kind of go to any side of it and have defense from the opposite side. Now, there is one far less known roof you can get to of this central building. While it does have some invisible walls, I think at the very top, yeah, the very tippy top parts you can't get to, but everything else here is free game, and it is very difficult for enemies to see you. It's very easy to get them to think that maybe you died at some point, just because there's so much space in this roof that it is incredibly easy to hide. And I would both hold it for and against the map, because it means that snipers have a very easy way to sort of ambush and shoot at targets which have basically no prior way of seeing them, because this is basically the last place you look. Like, up on these roofs, it's pretty easy to see them, they're not too high off the ground, and if anyone pokes their head out, you're probably gonna see it. If they shoot at you, you're definitely gonna know where it came from. With this roof, there's just not that ability, because you can fire from one location, and then instantly start heading to another, fire at a different target from there, and you can very quickly start racking damage on enemies, maybe not outright killing them, but making them very weak for the rest of your team. So that is something to watch out for. Now then, there is a massive thing that I need to talk about, and that is the disparity in defense between the plant and zombie sides of the map. I don't know about you, but the plant side of this map is very difficult to defend, which really sucks in things like Suburban Nation. Now, thankfully in Gnome Bomb, both of the Gnome Bomb locations are put outside the deep insides of the spawn area, like they usually are, to try and prevent spawn camping a little bit. But with the plant side of the base, you have this whole open area here that can be very easy to shoot into. And yes, if you can get on top of the rocks, it's a decent shooting place. But there's not a whole lot of defense. You can't just drop down very easily because it's such a big area. Realistically, let's say you're playing Agent P. You need to hop up there, and then up here, and then up there, and then sort of pull yourself forward to really get a good look at the enemies. That means if they start shooting at you, you're probably dead before you can walk back down here. And so, it's kind of that way with a lot of the rocks, this one being sort of an exception. If you're shooting at enemies coming up those stairs or that ramp, you can walk back and sort of have some cover with the rock up there, but there's really not much else. This one has the exact opposite feature, where you're actually going to have to walk back up and have an increase in elevation before you drop down. That is so much time to get your head blown off. Meanwhile, if we look at the zombie side of the map, first of all, it's straight up walled off. They're not playing around with these rocks or anything like that. It is well walled off. And also, the zombies have a potential sniper point right here, and it's pretty good. From this location, you can do a little bit of shooting at this bridge. It's not very good, unless you want to jump up to this roof, which is not the most difficult. Then you have advantage on all of that nonsense. And just from this roof, let's say this is the gnome bomb, you can defend at that gnome, that graveyard location, I should say. You have a very good view of all of this, and here in Suburban Nation, you actually have a shooting spot towards the central point. And also there is this roof over here, which is nowhere near as useful, but during Gnome Bomb, and to an extent Suburban Nation, you have a very good way to hide up on this roof. Now this one admittedly is a lot harder to get up to, but then you have a potential access route to this roof. Not the best sniping spot. You really only have a good clear view of this side of this little chunk of the map. But it is a very safe sniping point, because say you start getting shot back at, it's not a great distance till this little section of cover. And these are just a few little different examples of how the zombie side of the map, it feels a lot easier to defend. Now, with all that talked about, that is actually a lot of the map discussed. Now, aesthetically, it feels very homey. It definitely looks like how, like if every house in the world was kind of designed like these, I'd probably be okay with it. It feels nice and, I don't know, it just makes sense, I guess, if that makes any sense. It is me thinking that the design here makes sense. Does that make sense? Probably not, but aesthetically I like it very much. We got a few cherry blossom trees. We even have a water-spitting dragon statue. And heck, it looks like there was even a area that they modeled over there that it looks like theoretically you could get to, if only the game didn't have its sad limitations that it does. So, aesthetically, I'd say aesthetically it's actually kind of a 10 out of 10. Is that a bit weird of me to say, considering this is literally the first map we've done on this series? Probably so, but I'm gonna have it as a 10 out of 10. Now, as for strategic creativity, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. There's a lot of different things you can do here. Even on this bad, in my opinion, badly designed plant side of the map, there are a lot of interesting things you can do. If you're in a desperate defense against spawn campers, Citrons can do really nice here. This is probably one of the few sections of the map where it's very hard to see most of what's around you. So you could get away with some chomper shenanigans quite easily. Probably do some good work with Commando P, having the hyper and the way to get up vertically, and all of that. And of course, the zombie side is definitely spoiled for the strategic options and creativity because there are so many different sniper points. And the entry points onto their side of the map aren't very good either. Well, they are very good as well, I should say. That is what I meant to say. Realistically, you could have this section completely covered with 3, possibly 2 zombies. There's no way that somebody is getting into this section if you have something like a Super Brains and Scientist. I think this middle area is the only area where melee can't do well. And then for this area, it's probably the hardest to defend, which kind of makes sense of why they put a Suburbanation point here, and the tombstone location for the gnome bomb mode, since realistically, you can get into it. Now, as for the midfield, I'd say it's a bit less interesting, because it really is mostly just an open field with very little cover. It obviously means that any rapid-fire, high-damage character like foot soldiers and commando Ps and corns, they're probably going to do pretty well out here. but it also does provide just enough cover, just barely enough cover, that sunflowers and scientists can get their heals off. But once you get too deep into the field, yeah, that's going to be very dangerous to do. Especially with both sides having okay-ish sniping points. I'd still say that the zombies have the better sniping points. So, a 7 out of 10 for strategic creativity options. Now, I'd also say as for the map fairness, because that is something to keep in mind. Not all maps are equal. And I feel like this one is a good example of sometimes one side is way more shafted than the other with what they can do on the map. And I feel like this is one I'm gonna have to give it a 3 out of 10 on the strategic fairness, because I've fought on this plant side of the map, and it is definitely not well made for the plants to actually survive easily. Because with the zombies, they actually have a lot of points where they can poke their head out very easily, get damage off, get kills, make some progress on the objective with their snipers without leaving the base, but the plant side doesn't have that, and I think that is the biggest disparity with this, is that there are very few good sniper options. You have a lot of different sniping point options, but none of them are very good. Because realistically, yeah, I guess pea shooters can hyper up here, but really there's not a whole lot available. So then, what is my final score of the map? Overall, I think the fact that it looks beautiful, and it is, I think, one of the first maps designed as well. It's sort of the starter map, you know? So I can't really critique it too harshly, because I'm pretty sure this is one of the places that was made early in Garden Warfare 2's development. So they had no idea some of the different characters that were going to be made. They probably may not have known that there was ever going to be something like Captain Squawk, or Breakfast Brains, or Iron Citron, or any of the other characters that were kind of added post-launch. So, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. We'll see how that changes with other maps, because at the end of the day, it's a good map. It's good fun. It is kind of a default choice, because at the end of the day, it's still a fun map. My problem with it is it's just a little bit more fun for some rather than others. So, yeah, that is it. This is way more examination into a Garden Warfare 2 map than most people would ever give. But yeah, that is my final rank of the map, 7 out of 10. And with that, this video is all done. So, I hope you've enjoyed it. If you want to see me continue this series of examining the maps and ranking them, then make sure to subscribe and leave a like on the video. I would enjoy both very, very much. And I will see you next time. Good day.